From Buffalo Wild Wings on Louise Avenue in Sioux Falls, welcome to Benchwarmers. Today's featured guests are Augustana University football head coach Jerry Olszewski, Midco Sports Network's David Brown, Argus leader sports writer Mick Gary, and our host, Midco Sports Network's Tom Neiman.
Hello, welcome again to Benchwarmers here at Buffalo Wild Wings in Sioux Falls on Louise Avenue. And just four guys that don't look all that smart, but we might surprise you, so hang in there. We're going to give it a shot. What season is it? We get into August here, guys. What season is it right now? Is it football season? Is it baseball season? What season is it, Brownie?
I say August 1st is the demarcation where it's officially football season. I know some college teams in the area have already started fall camp, but the way I view it as a Minnesota sports fan is the Twins got us to Vikings training camp being competitive. So now we can fully transition into the Vikings and into football. If you're a fan of a certain baseball team, like your Royals, for instance, maybe it's still baseball season, but for now, I say we're right on that line where football has officially started. Still
some hope for the Royals. The Twins are hanging in there. Mick, what do you think?
I would say that locally, definitely football.
Yeah?
We're sitting right next to a
Thank
football
you. Good
coach.
job, Mick. Appreciate the...
Locally, the focus at August 1st definitely switches over because we're working on all our stuff that precedes the season with stories, and the same with you guys to a certain extent, I would think. But nationally, it's still baseball. I mean, there's playing games that matter right now, and if you're a baseball fan, this is a real fun time of year.
I know what your answer is going to be, but do we push football up too far? It's still summer.
I like baseball a lot. I'm a big baseball fan.
Yeah.
Baseball's in my family. Enjoy it a ton, but it's always football season. So as it gets cranked up and ready to go with NFL training camps and Division I programs starting up and already in practice, it's an exciting time. You know, this is the groundwork that's going to be done for 3 months of success. So I'm ready to go.
All right, we're going to talk a lot of football, obviously. We'll get into Augustana and the Minnesota Vikings, but let's talk about a little bit of Major League Baseball first, and a great story about a Sioux Falls kid. His name's Dusty Coleman, played at Sioux Falls O'Gorman, and at 30 years of age now, this is really, he broke in a couple of years ago, Mick, with the Kansas City Royals, finally got there at the age of 28, but now at the age of 30, Dusty Coleman really getting his first chance with the San Diego Padres. It's almost unheard of that a guy that age in Major League Baseball finally gets a shot, and he's getting it.
Well, you know, it was a great story the first time that he got up with the Royals, and it didn't work out, and there were some circumstances there where he drew attention to himself on the field. You know, he had the tough play at the plate. I mean, it was nothing, and the team regarded it as nothing, but the sample size was that small, it was something that a guy who's entirely capable of carrying around a little burden like that, he had to do it. And I think Dusty, I've known him since 10th grade. You know, you hear him say a lot of the same things about I'm not going to quit, I'm going to keep a positive attitude. But Dusty has always believed that. Dusty's always been a guy who's all in. And if there's ever been an example where a guy's personal resolve is demonstrated, it is rewarded. It is this situation here. He hung in there. And it's easy to say you're going to hang in there, but to actually do it and to keep a positive attitude and to be a productive enough player thereafter, after that one shot, to get another shot and then make the most of that shot, it's a fantastic story.
And the odds that he was up against, there are thousands of guys drafted every year coming right out of high school. If you're 23 or 24 years old, they start talking about you being old in Major League Baseball. And to be where he's at, it's just been an incredible story to watch. And it's kind of keeping people interested from around here, I think, in the Major League races. And you're a Wisconsin guy and a Brewers fan still?
Yes,
a Brewers and Cubs fan. Reconcile this. How do you do this?
Well, they changed on me. I mean, the Brewers were always an American League team growing up, and when they went to the National League, I was conflicted because I could watch the Cubs every day on WGN. So I stayed true to the Cubs and the Brewers, and I've even thrown the Minnesota Twins in there because I spent quite a long time of my life working in the state of Minnesota and got to know some of those guys, and great organization. And my in-laws are a huge baseball family, obviously in Dean Boyer, so I didn't really have a choice. But I love it. I love everything about baseball.
All right, and there's a good race going on between the Brewers and the Cubs.
We got to figure it out. We got to get back in it.
The Twins are 5 out of the wild card right now. Are they done, Brownie, you think?
Well, they just flipped Jaime Garcia. They got him from the Atlanta Braves, used him for a start, got a win. Then they flipped him to the Yankees for 2 more prospects. It's tough. They're sort of teetering on the edge. I think they're like 5.5 back of the wild card now. So you're not out of it, quote unquote, but when you look realistically ahead of you, you got the Indians ahead of you, your Royals are ahead of them. it's tough to say, and they've got a lot of injuries, and they got a lot of guys that people want, like Brandon Kinsler's on people's radars. I don't know if he'll be traded. Maybe they'll trade Urban Santana. There's just a lot of guys that look appealing to contending ball clubs, so you kind of have to toe that line a little bit, but right now, it's a little tough. I think they're probably in sell mode.
Well, you also look at some of those. There's a lot of one-run losses in there and late inning losses. And you look at playoff time in this mid-stretch right now. If they can flip those around and get a run late in the 5th, 6th, 7th inning, they're right back in it with a good road trip or two.
Right, and their last road trip, where they kind of slid out of the race, they were playing at the Dodgers, and the Dodgers are the best team in baseball.
Absolutely.
They're 40, 45 games above 500. So it's how the front office views that road trip. Do they think that's an anomaly because they were playing the best team, or is that indicative of where they're going to go the rest of the season?
Mick, last word on the Twins.
Every team, that's kind of in that middle area deals with this issue today, this week, last week. I think it's different for the Twins this year because it's their first crack in this situation with a new front office. And I think by dealing Garcia, you really saw that this is a team that is, at least the front office is looking toward the future. They're a little bit unconvinced about the prospects of this season turning out the way that the fans would like it to turn out.
They keep looking toward the future. That's the way it's been. When does the future get here?
It's never ending.
Is that coming?
Apparently, it's that old Philadelphia 76ers trust the process type of mentality.
The future's going to be here when they find 3 starting pitchers who finish the season with an ERA under 4.
Okay.
That's when the future
We will know they have arrived then.
Yes.
All right. I still got some hope for the Twins. We'll see what happens there. All right, Dusty Coleman, great story. There's another great story that came out of Augustana Football. C.J. Hamm, who's taking a shot with the Minnesota Vikings. Now we'll talk about him. And Augie Football lost one of the best quarterbacks they've ever had. What's it going to be like for the Augie Vikings this year? We'll talk about that and the Northern Sun when we come back on Benchwarmers.
Benchwarmers on Midco Sports Network is presented by Buffalo Wild Wings.
Welcome back to Benchwarmers here at Buffalo Wild Wings in Sioux Falls, and Augustana Football. The University of Augustana reports. You guys
Augustana University.
Augustana University.
Yes.
Still struggling with that.
We'll get you there.
Augustana University football team reports when?
August 9th.
All across the Northern Sun, people are getting ready. Aberdeen, Duluth, Bemidji, all over the place. Augustana 8-3 last year, 9-3 the year before that. You lose one of the best quarterbacks you've ever had. Trey Hyde was unbelievable for you last year. What do you got coming back to replace him?
Well, it's an odd circumstance that we have. First of all, Trey had the most decorated career in Augustana history, a 4-year starter for us, and you just don't replicate that. And he was unique in his skill set and his style, and won 17 games for us his last 2 seasons, along with a great supporting cast. Obviously, we lost our top 3 quarterbacks. It's just one of those years where it happens like that. Trey, we knew obviously was running out of his eligibility. Chase Marceau, unable to return. Did not get granted his appeal, chose to go to Harvard Medical School, and rightfully so. So he's right now in Boston doing what he does, and he's going to be a great professional in that career. And then our 3rd string guy, Casey Nichols, ended up blowing his UCL joint in his elbow this spring. So top 3 guys are gone. Right now, that's a whole new face group and a lot of work to get done out of that group. The guy that got a lot of reps was a transfer from Tulsa, Ryan Rubley. Ryan has a big arm, and he's an explosive runner too, but he's just got to keep digesting our offense a little bit. And then we have another transfer from a junior college, San Mateo Junior College in California, Bobby Kelmine, that has joined us this summer. And then Gage McClanahan, who was on our roster from Texas. And then a 4th guy, a freshman, actually Kyle Sadler from Frisco, Texas, is very talented and has been here this summer working out with the guys as well.
But they're unknowns, right? I mean, you said this is a situation you haven't had ever really where you just didn't know because of the Marceau situation, and it's very odd coming into camp this year.
It is, especially at such a critical position. A leader, not even mention the playmaking ability. But we have a good supporting cast. We feel we've recruited well these last 3-4 years. This was my first recruiting class, the senior group. So I think the culture's been established. They understand that players and plans change, but expectations do not. And that's a big piece of it. So whoever is our starting quarterback is going to understand that there's a bar to be raised, and you got to answer that every week. And it's a tough league. no one's going to sit and feel sorry for us, that's for sure. Everybody else is going to have issues roster-wise too, and we'll figure it out, and the best guy will play, and it might be a two-guy system, as we go forward. We'll figure all that out through fall camp and be ready for Moorhead, who's a very gifted team.
Is it like the NFL, though? That position is so important. The best teams have the best quarterbacks. Is it that way in the Northern Sun or not?
Well, last year, David and I were talking about this earlier. You look at the quarterbacks in our league last year, it was a quarterback-heavy laden football league, and also with the leaders that it was. Now, there's a lot of wild cards. A lot of people are shifting for who they're going to have. Maybe not, maybe more predicated on who was coming up in the system than we are at currently, but at the same point, until you're out there and you get in a game, the NSIC is a tough, long schedule. Until you're out there and prove yourself on a play-to-play basis, not only your teammates but also against your opponents, I think everybody is going to be wondering, who's that team to run with. And then you go on the supporting cast. I think defense is going to be a premium this year in the league. I really do. I think that the best defenses are going to give you an opportunity for more possession, steal a possession a game, maybe shorten the field for yourself.
Will you have one of them?
I think we do. I think we have a lot of returning veterans that have seen a lot of snaps, and I think that'll help us. And then special teams going to play into that as well. So I'm looking forward to that.
Talk about schedule, Brownie. Here on Midco Sports Network, we've got a new thing this fall. We'll have live Northern Sun football games on Thursday and Saturday nights. First one is Saturday, September 2nd with Moorhead playing at Augustana. Talk about how this schedule came together a little bit with the Northern Sun.
Well, just working with the Northern Sun, wanted to try something new, and obviously at Midco we were a willing partner, so we tried to craft a unique Thursday night schedule. It's a one-year test program for right now, so we'll see how it goes in 2017 and then reevaluate after that. But all 16 teams play at least one Thursday night game. We got 11 straight weeks of it in 11 different locations in addition to the Saturday games, as you mentioned. So I think we have 20 total NSIC games this fall as compared to just a handful last fall. So I think it'll be really cool, just get more Northern Sun exposure out there. We got 4 Augustana games this season, including that opener against Moorhead. It's like you're the only team playing on a Saturday that first week. You and guys in Moorhead, everyone else is on a Thursday. But that'll be a good contest to open things up because, as you said, a lot of quarterbacks turned over, but Moorhead's got a guy coming back in Demetrius Carr who's pretty good, and Damon Gibson, their wide receiver, getting some NFL buzz as well. But you guys are right. Defenses will be key this year because Trey Hyde's gone. Luke Papillion from Sioux Falls is gone. Drew Bauer from Minnesota Duluth is gone. Minnesota State had a 2 QB system. They're gone. So I think defenses, you'll see which elite defenses rise to the top, especially this fall as compared to last fall.
All right, looking forward to it. Great year of Northern Sun Intercollegiate Conference football on Midco Sports Network, including Moorhead at Augustana to kick it off on September 2nd. And there's another great story that came out of Augustana a couple years ago. CJ Hamm is a running back that is trying to make a go with the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to talk about that when we come back on Benchwarmers.
Benchwarmers on Midco Sports Network is presented by Buffalo Wild Wings.
Welcome back to Benchwarmers. The Minnesota Vikings have reported to training camp in Mankato, Minnesota. There is a young man on the roster right now named CJ Hamm, played running back at Augustana 2 years ago. Was with the Vikings last year, but they cut him. He is back in camp this year. What are his prospects for making the 53-man roster for the Vikings?
Well, he's always been with their practice roster since he got up with them and was called up to their active roster for Green Bay game at the end of last season. So just talked with CJ on Friday. He's having a great camp. He was able to come into the early camp with the first year and second year guys. The transition to fullback helps him, no question about it, in a lot of ways. Number one, he's a physical back. Yeah. I think that I always said he's a third down NFL back. He can get the tough yards, fantastic in pass protection. And the thing that people don't know about CJ is he has exceptional ball skills. I mean, he really can catch the football. And the Viking staff knows that. Coach Shermer has talked about it multiple times. So I think he's got a really good shot. The other thing is he's included on all the special team meetings. You know, he's talking about New Orleans already, and I love that because he's going to work at it, and it's important to him.
Similar build, similar situation almost with Zach Zenner, former South Dakota State running back, now with the Detroit Lions, who broke in kind of the same way that CJ's trying to get in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In many sense, you have to do something early. You have to show a glimpse of what you potentially could do, and I think CJ did that, and so obviously so did Zach, and hopefully that leads to other great things. But his ticket's still going to be on special teams as well, and I think he's very, very usable in just about every special team that they have. I think he can be excellent and a great performer for them just from the standpoint of his versatility and his physicality. He runs really well. I mean, CJ is a 4.62 kid.
Yeah, physically he's a beast.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he tested as well as anybody. If you looked at his numbers coming out of college versus all the fullbacks that were available in the country, he was in the top 5 as numbers go. So I think he can do it, and I know he can do it. I don't think he can. I know he can. They just got to make sure he gets the opportunity to do so.
NFL made a change this year. They're going to make one cut from 90 down to 53, so Hamm will have an opportunity in all of those preseason games to show what he can do. So maybe that's a good rule change for CJ Hamm. So we wish him certainly the best. The Vikings drafted a running back, Dalvin Cook. They got Jerick McKinnon, Latavius Murray they went out and got. The running game was last in the NFL last year for the Vikings, Mick. I would think they could improve on that a little bit this year.
Well, I think when you look at what happened last year, you start with the offensive line, and it was not a below average offensive line. This was an offensive line that, via some poor drafting and injuries, was one of the worst offensive lines statistically in NFL history. I'm only exaggerating a little bit here, and you would think
you're not. You're not exaggerating.
You would think that if they can bump that up to like a little below average from the worst in history, that you would see a marked improvement in the production of all their skilled players.
All right, 75 yards a game on the ground last year was dead last in the NFL. Overall, they were 28th. Brownie, how does the offense get better? Are you a Sam Bradford believer as well? Part of that question.
I'm a Sam Bradford believer now. I think people have ragged on him, but he's always had to switch offensive coordinators and switch systems. He has Pat Shurmur as his offensive coordinator, who is Coach OJ knows was with him in Philadelphia, was with him in St. Louis back when the Rams still had a team in St. Louis. So having that consistency, I think, will help with the offense. And then as far as the rest of the offense is concerned, Mick's right. If the offensive line can go from below average to even slightly below average, not even average, slightly below average, I think they'll be a lot better, and I think CJ can help that. The Vikings are one of the few teams in the NFL that actually utilizes a fullback. They've had Zach Line in the past, they've had Jerome Felton in the past, so I think CJ Hamm's odds of making the team go up, and as you said, he's big, he's physical, and he can catch out of the backfield. I think that can only help the offense get better.
And I think it helps the offensive line. He can take on, I watched him in training camp, take on the larger defensive ends and the outside linebackers on pressure pro. And I don't want to build up too much on it, but that's a huge addition to be able to sit and say, hey, you got to come 4 strong or 4 weak from either side. If I got a running back that I can trust on my backside, you can slide pro, you can ISO a guy out. I mean, it makes a much more open offense if you want to use it. I know Shurmur will.
You got to figure that that's going to be how he makes the team, if he proves he can do that, if he can take on the defensive end that's swinging around there.
No question. I think it's one of his strengths, and I think it's something that'll add to their offense. It's basically putting a tight end or another tackle on the field. If you can truly, and just think about this, all the blitz pros and zone dogs that teams are doing now by personnel groupings, if you can stay in efficient down and distance, stay ahead of the chains, and get into a third and less than 4 situation with more regularity than not, now you give yourself an opportunity to advance it down and wear out that defense, get that specialty group off the field, the special cats, if you will. Now you got a better isolation matchup, and all of a sudden the field becomes short and scores happen.
Always so much hope for Vikings fans at this point.
It's all we got right
in the
now.
Season. It's going to be a good year. I think they're going to be good.
No non-Viking fan has ever talked about the Vikings without smirking, ever.
It's going to be a good year for Minnesota. We were going to talk about Mick Gary's weird past with former Vikings quarterback Wade Wilson, but you can find that story on his Twitter page. Go look that up. It's pretty hilarious.
Thanks for sparing me that, Tom.
Yeah, you bet. All right, when we come back, our winging it question from the lunchtime crowd here at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Benchwarmers on Midco Sports Network is presented by Buffalo Wild Wings.
Welcome back. Time for our winging it question of the week here at Buffalo Wild Wings, and for that, let's go to Kelly Stewart.
All right, thanks, Tom. I'm here with Chris. He's from Pierre. He's a Vikings fan, and he has a question about the upcoming season.
How many wins are the Vikings going to have this year?
Good question. Thank you so much, Chris. We'll see what the panel says.
All right, thanks, Chris from Pierre. Congratulations to Pierre, by the way, on their American Legion Baseball Championship. But the question from Chris, Minnesota Vikings, how many wins this year? 8 minimum. Let's not even mess around with that. Brownie, what's it going to be?
My hope is 9 or 10. They have a really tough 3 games in a row on the road in the latter part of the season. They're at Detroit, at Atlanta, at Carolina, and then they have 2 of the next 3 at home to close out the season. But that one road game at the end of the year is at Green Bay on Christmas Eve. So they have a tough stretch to end the season. They got to get off to a hot start. So my personal opinion, I'm hoping 9 or 10 and they can get a wild card spot.
Mickey, what do you think?
I think 10. I think you're going to see a little bit better running game this year, and overall the offense I think is going to be more productive, and then a product of that will be a defense that isn't on the field quite as often, and you're going to see a little bit more of the ability on that defense. It does have some serious ability. You're going to see that come out, be more prominent.
All right, Coach?
I'd say the 9-10 route as well. I think a big part of it's going to be that AFC matchups and how the health is at that point when they play those games. Detroit's going to be a better team than they've been, and Chicago won't be. So I think that it'll be right around that 9-10 and maybe a playoff spot sliding in that wild card look. And we'll see what Green Bay's health is like.
I'm going to say 11 just because for the Vikings coming up this year. Our poll question when we come back, who should be the quarterback of the future for the Vikings? Sam Bradford, Teddy Bradshaw, Teddy Bridgewater, or somebody else. Some pretty interesting write-in votes. That's coming up.
Benchwarmers on Midco Sports Network is presented by Buffalo Wild Wing.
Welcome back. Our poll question this week, who should be the quarterback of the future for the Minnesota Vikings? Sam Bradford, Teddy Bridgewater, somebody else. Teddy Bridgewater, 44% of the vote this week. Just slightly ahead of Sam Bradford. A couple of the write-in votes, Brett Favre, Tony Romo, and one for Chase Daniel for some reason, but
that's an
there you go.
request.
There you go, Brownie. Who do you think it should be?
I'm a Teddy guy. I love Teddy, but just Sam Bradford's in a contract year. I think second year with Shermer and a consistent offense, I think it has to be Bradford.
They got to make a decision after next year, but we'll see.
It's got to be Bradford. I don't think we have enough information to make a decision on Bridgewater. We don't know about his health, and he had not proven himself as an NFL quarterback when he got hurt.
It's going to be a great debate over the next year. We got to go.
Yep.
Have a great season.
Thank you so much,
Thanks,
guys.
Nick.
Pleasure to be with you.
See you guys
Thank
next
you.
week.